Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Vet Friend, and today I'm reviewing the Feiyue FE Lo 1920. So this model has been on my radar for quite some time. I constantly get hit with their targeted ads, and more specifically, they've been on my radar because they are $24.99. Yeah, you heard that, $25. I spend more on coffee every single week than I did on these pair of shoes. And I mean, that caffeine addiction is definitely on me. But that being said, before we do dive into this video, I do want to make it known that I've seen two different ways to pronounce this shoe, Feiyue and Feiyue. I'm going to go with the latter in this video. So 3 pros that I have with this model is number 1, the price point. It is really tough to beat a shoe for $24.99. And now I've reviewed other super budget friendly models before. I've done like the Witten barefoot shoe and stuff. And generally when models start to get past $40 USD and start to like be cheaper in price than that, their quality starts to tank a little bit. And basically like you can just tell that their construction isn't up to par with more models that have a slightly higher price point. With this shoe, honestly, their construction is pretty dang good for $24.99. And so I think if you are somebody who is looking for a shoe that you can wear for daily wear and then also some lifting, this could be a pretty viable option to look into. And now more specifically, my second pro with this model is that there is a pretty decent dual functionality with this model. This shoe, and Feiyue in general, was popularized first in martial arts communities. It has then since been used by parkour athletes, and while I am definitely not as cool or specialized as those two different communities, a lot of lifters have been reaching for this model, and for good reason. This model has a 0mm heel toe drop, so if you like lifting with a flat shoe, this can be a pretty viable option to look into, and they are pretty minimalist in nature, so they have a pretty good level of mobility to them. So if you like a shoe that is a bit more minimalist in nature and flat, this could be a pretty good option to look into. Plus, if you take out the insole in this model, which I'll also talk about in my con section with this shoe, you get pretty flat to the ground. So if you're trying to cut down, for example, on range of motion and deadlifts, this can be a pretty viable option to explore. Honestly, they remind me a lot of Converse in regard to like their flatter sole construction. They have a little bit of a stack height and they have a canvas upper. My third pro with this model is that if you are new to minimalist shoes, I feel like this could be a pretty good option to explore. This model is not a barefoot shoe. However, it is slightly more minimalist in nature. And if you take out the insole, which is pretty thick with a piece of foam on it that's attached, so like they don't necessarily always come out, but you can pull them out because there's only light adhesive keeping these insoles in, and they are pretty thick with foam, you get a really minimalist shoe that's pretty dang flat in nature. So for somebody who is acclimating to a minimalist shoe or acclimating to zero drop shoes, for example, and they want something that's affordable that they can just throw on and acclimate to, this could be a really good option to explore. Plus, if you take that insole out, you get closer to the ground with a little bit more ground feel. And then if you want to keep this insole in, you do get a little bit more cushion. So it does have a little bit of a variety to it for those folks who are acclimating to more minimalist style shoes. But that all being said, since they are $24.99, I have noticed a couple of cons with the FE Lo 1920. So 2 potential cons I could see folks having with the Feiyue FE Lo 1920 is number 1, their sizing and fit. So this model runs pretty short and their toe box is pretty narrow. And then if you look at the midfoot and heel, they're also pretty narrow in nature. So on Feiyue's site, they recommend sizing up a half size. I would say that is definitely the call with the shoe if you are looking into them. And if you have a slightly wider foot, you might want to go up a full size or actually just look into different models. This model has a fit that I would describe as similar to Converse in regard to like the narrowness through the midfoot and then the toe box that isn't the widest. So it doesn't give you the most room for toe splay, which could be problematic for lifting. If you have a narrow or neutral foot, I do think this toe box will be fine for your overall needs. But if you have a neutral with foot that errs on the side of being a little bit wider or a wide foot, this shoe might feel a little bit limiting. And honestly, if they made the toe box just a little bit wider, then we would really be onto something, especially for their price point. The second con that I have with this model is I don't think they're gonna last you forever like some other models that may cost a little bit more. And more specifically, something that I've noticed with this shoe is the insole construction. So the insoles in this model don't necessarily come out automatically. They have a light adhesive keeping them on. However, if you do wanna train in this model, you'll likely wanna take out that insole from time to time. If you take out the insole, I noticed that the insole is not really made to be the best. So we have like a little bit of fraying up here with the materials already in this one, and then on this one too, we're already having a little bit of breakdown up here on the toe box. So that's just kind of like a build thing that comes along with this shoe. I also missed a little bit of this foam, and I do think that this insole could compress over time because it is just 2 pieces of foam kind of like glued together. So I am not convinced that the insole is going to last you a while, but I mean, for $24.99, I feel like that's not the biggest deal, especially since this insole is not technically designed to be taken out. But again, for lifting, you might want to do that. So overall, those are my two cons with this shoe. It's really tough to like call out a lot of blatant cons with this model because for $24.99, I feel like the shoe delivers. And that being said, let's talk about the performance I've had with the FE Low 1920. When chatting on the performance of the Feiyue FE Low 1920, I'm going to break this section to a few different parts. I'm going to talk about lifting, versatile training, shorter runs, because I have seen people ask if you can run in these, and then daily wear. When it comes to lifting, I like this shoe overall. I would put it in the same category of shoes as like Converse and Vans. They're all zero drop shoes, they're all pretty dang stable, and they're not necessarily designed for lifting, but they can excel for that context. Now, two reasons why I like this model for lifting specifically is number one, their stability is pretty good, especially if you take that insole out, you get a nice stable base to train on, and the sole is pretty dang mobile. You can also just leave this in if you do want a little bit of cushion for your training, and it should be pretty stable at that too. And then also, I like the outsole tread in the shoe. For lifting purposes, I don't think you're gonna have traction issues with this model, and the outsole feels pretty durable for what it's worth in regard to being a lower price point shoe. I could also see this being a good option for anybody who has been lifting with shoes with a higher drop, but they wanna start acclimating and getting used to flat shoes for whatever reason. This model being at only $24.99 could be a nice transition shoe to see if you like lifting with flatter shoes versus higher drops. So if you want something just very casual that you can throw on here and there to acclimate to lifting with a zero drop, this could be a viable option to explore. Now, when it comes to versatile training, I thought this shoe was okay. And now please note, that is from the opinion of like a recreational lifter who's going to be using these for like plyometrics here and there if they're included in a session where I'm also going to be wearing this shoe in the first place. I included the section more specifically because with their popularity in like parkour and with martial arts, I feel like those are very versatile sports to begin with. So this model obviously has a little bit of an edge when it comes to versatility. However, it's not necessarily my go-to type of shoe for that style of training, so I do want to make that known. But if you do want to do any form of like versatile training in the shoe, you can technically do so. I don't think they're the most comfortable, and their firmness kind of takes away from like longer athletic sessions in my opinion. But if you are used to having a shoe like this for your versatile sessions, then I think they can hold their own. And we do get a little bit of padding here with the insole, so you do get a little bit of cushion on top of the zero drop firmer sole. In the context of running, I did not want to run in this model, but I did do a half mile just to see, and as expected, I did not find them that comfortable. I would say probably just don't run in this shoe. You'll make them last longer if you don't, but if you do, like maybe like a short run here and there. However, again, they're not that comfortable in my opinion with their narrower construction and also their firm sole construction. I don't like running in them at all. For daily wear, the shoe does a pretty good job. Overall, they have a pretty good clean appearance. The canvas upper is lightweight. It doesn't have the most support back here in the heel or around the midfoot, but if you don't need something super supportive, this could be a viable option just to wear out and about and beat up. Plus they have a rubber toe cap up here, which could be pretty good for durability. So overall, for lifting, this model excels pretty well. For versatile training, they're okay. For runs, I would say pass on them. And then for daily wear, they can hold their own, especially for being $25 USD. So now to answer the question, who should invest in the Feiyue FE Low 1920? So there are three populations that I could see resonating really well with this model. Number one, my super budget conscious shopper. So if you want a shoe for daily wear and lifting that is pretty simplistic in nature, this is a viable option to explore. They are built a lot better than other really budget friendly options on the market. So I do kind of vouch for them in the context of having a construction that is pretty dang good for 25 USD. The second population is the lifter that is acclimating to flat shoes, or they want a flat shoe for lifting, but they don't feel like spending a ton of money acclimating to that style of footwear. This could be a really good cost-efficient transition shoe for that context. And then the third population is anybody who just likes zero drop shoes in general, but also has a narrow or neutral width foot. This shoe will fit your foot anatomy pretty well in my opinion if you fall into those two categories. So I do think they'll deliver, especially for their price point for lifting and daily wear. When it comes to sizing and fit, you are definitely going to want to size up a half size in this model at least. If you have a narrow or neutral foot, I would say definitely size up a half size. If you have a wider foot, go up a full size or just pass on this shoe. They run pretty short and their overall construction fits similar to like Converse and honestly like kind of like a slipper almost in some respects due to the thinner canvas upper. So if you are looking in this model, size up before you buy. Trust me, that's also what Feiyue recommends on their site. I think you'll be way better suited by doing so. When it comes to the price in the Feiyue FE Low 1920, you can expect to pay around $24.99 USD. That is a super budget friendly price point, especially for what this shoe offers. So if you are somebody who doesn't want to spend a ton on shoes and that you just want shoes that you can beat up on a daily wear basis and at the gym, honestly, it is really hard to fault 25 USD, especially if you want a flat zero drop shoe for your training. So now let's talk about the weight, heel to toe drop, and insole in the FE LO 1920. For my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 11.05 ounces. This model has a 0mm heel to toe drop, and the insole, while it's not technically removable, only has a light adhesive keeping it in, so you can remove this shoe. And do note there is a stacked foam back here in the heel, so that will change the drop slightly of the shoe when you have the insole in. Overall, it is a minimalist drop, but it is definitely important to note if you are leaving that insole in strictly when you wear these shoes. All right, now let's cover the construction of the Feiyue FE LO 1920. Up here on the toe box, we have a rubber toe cap that encloses this toe, and then looking at the upper, we have a canvas upper that extends from the forefoot, midfoot, and heel. The heel itself is pretty low profile in design, and it has a little light counter in it, so it does give you a little bit of structure, but it's not the most supportive heel on the market. We have Feiyue branding here on the lateral and medial side of this shoe, and then looking at the midfoot, we have 5 eyelets that run up and a canvas tongue. This canvas tongue sits on these 2 lateral and medial lips. It helps give this shoe's midfoot additional security, and this model does have a plimsoll design, so the way this model looks, fits, and feels is from that. Looking at the sole construction, we have a rubber wrap that wraps the entirety of this shoe, and then looking at the outsole, we also have a rubber outsole. Now this outsole does have some slicker parts here through the forefoot and then back here at the base of the heel. However, I didn't really have traction issues with this in this model, so I don't think traction is going to be a problem for most in this shoe. And then looking at the insole, once again, the insole does not technically come out. However, if you do take it out, you're going to have this foam midsole. It does have a layered foam back here in the heel running up to the midfoot. It gives this shoe a slightly more elevated heel position when the insole is in. And then looking at the sole itself, it is pretty flexible, especially if you take that insole out. So it is a pretty minimalist shoe in nature. If you have any additional questions on this model, drop a comment down below and I'll answer whatever you have. All right guys, that wraps up my review of the Feiyue FE LO 1920. Overall, I thought this shoe held its own for both lifting and daily wear. I'm also always super excited when I find budget-friendly models that work really well that I could recommend for different athletes and contexts. Is this shoe going to be the longest lasting in regard to durability? Does it have the latest tech? No, but for 25 USD, you kind of have to pick your battles. So if you have any questions on this model, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. What am I doing with my hand? That all being said, guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one.